What is up, Pickle Traders? Lee Ryder here with Prime IQ Labs, and in this video we're going to cover volume profiles. We're going to cover what they are, the different terminology used to describe different parts of the profile, and then exactly how we're using them in the market. So let's get to it. Okay, so I have my chart up here. I'm once again on the 1 minute, and I just have the volume profiles drawn up. Now, most people are used to seeing volume at time, which, let's say these are 1 minute bars. So you're used to seeing like the volume of that total 1 minute displayed as a graph. And let me go ahead and enable that. Yep, down here. So this is how most people are used to seeing it, where they'll see the bars at the bottom of the chart. So this is volume at time, but this actually is not very valuable for making trading decisions. What is much more valuable is knowing how much volume has occurred at each price. So if you imagine the standard profile turned up on its edge, and we're going to be looking at the profile that way. This is much more valuable because this shows actually where people are voting with their money. Now, the first thing is, you might notice we use a couple different sessions. So this green one, for instance, is the London session. This red one is going to be the US session. And so we like to break those apart into sessions because different amounts of volume are going to happen at different times. And generally, you want to be participating in trading at a time that has the highest amount of volume and the most amount of participants. That's why we like to separate out those volume profiles into sessions. So they would call this a session volume profile. Now you can see there's a couple lines on here. So let me go ahead and mute the London one so it's not confusing. We're just going to look at this one profile here. So this is basically at the beginning of pre-market all the way till the close of day for US. And you'll see the profile with some shaded areas up here, and then a red line and a green line and this blue line with some shade areas. So just like we talked about standard deviations, and we showed that chart when you took the Bollinger Band lecture and looked at that video, the same thing is happening here. If you imagine this is one giant profile, these lines right here represent 2 standard deviations, and that's 70%. So that's what that is representing. So every 70% of all the volume will be inside this range. Now, we really like volume profiles because they show us areas where price is likely to reverse. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's go ahead and look at these things called vacuum nodes. Now, if we look at a vacuum node, and I'm going to draw one out right here. It's basically this void that occurs in the profile, and you can see it. Let me change the color so it's a little easier to see. Border down to green. Okay, there we go. So there's a void here. Well, generally, as you can see, price will come down here, and this will act as support or resistance. As you can see, until it breaks through, it becomes resistance again. So we are basically drawing all of our support and resistance from these vacuum nodes, and this is a lack of buying. This is a place that where price gets to, everybody says, whoa, I either think price is better below, or I think price is better higher, but I don't think price is here, and that's why price usually reverses. So when we look and we trade, these are one of the areas we're looking at. Now, this other line you see, this blue line, is called the point of control. Now, what this line says is it shows the most amount of volume that was traded during this session is going to be highlighted by this blue line. You can see this is where a lot of congestion happens, and that's exactly true, because in auction theory, we know when price is at value, we will get a tight range where everyone thinks this is value, and really you can't have price movement or price discovery until you decide we're at value and now we need to move. So what this blue line or point of control is showing you is that when price is around here, it is likely going to extend to one of the two sides, either down to oversold or overbought, or in this case, it was a continuation of this London session that just kept going lower. So that's the way we're using the volume profile. Now, I know that's a lot of information, but that's the basics of how we're using it. And I'm going to go over it again real quick. We have a couple parts of the volume profile. The first one is looking at standard deviations again. Now, if you don't know what that means, that's also covered in our Bollinger Band video. But basically, that's saying we have one standard deviation away from the point of control. So this is where the most amount of value was. We want to look at 70% or one standard deviation away on each side, and it's actually 32.8 or something. So it's approximately 70 for this whole range. But we want to look on each side of it, and we want to know when price is outside of it. that's when we're likely to get trades. Now, if you'll notice, when price comes out here, it's like it almost always comes back to a middle and then it'll continue lower, or always to the other side. If I turn on, now we can go and look at another profile and you'll see the same thing. The last time we saw the US session, right? This was yesterday. Same thing, price came up into this region and then fell off all the way to the point of control, and then what? To that 1 standard deviation away, and then reversed. So this is a great way that we can find where support and resistance is likely going to be, because this is where traders are actually voting with their money. It's not like hokum or anything. They're actually showing you where they have put their money and where purchases have been made. You'll also see that in this profile back here that it acted as support through a lot of this range, right? Through that whole next period, this vacuum node acted as support for this whole period, even down into the next, right? Until it broke down. So that's how important those vacuum nodes are. We know when price gets in these areas, it's going to be quite, it should be volatile. And when it moves through it, it's very volatile. So this is kind of how we're using the volume profile. I hope that was helpful, and we'll see you in the next one.